to make your voice heard. You're going to have to be a lot louder than that, because we need to make sure that the warmongers in Downing Street can hear us. So say it with me. Free, free! 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 Free, free!
Palestine!
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 Now, when I say long live Palestine, you say long live Gaza. Long live Palestine!
Long live Gaza!
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 1, 2, 3, 4,
Occupation no more!
5, 6, 7, 8.
Israel is a terrorist state!
1, 2, 3, 4,
Occupation no more!
5, 6, 7, 8.
Israel is a terrorist state!
1, 2, 3, 4,
Occupation no more!
5, 6, 7, 8.
Israel is a terrorist state!
1, 2, 3, 4,
Occupation no more!
5, 6, 7, 8.
Israel is a terrorist state!
1, 2, 3, 4,
Occupation no more!
5, 6, 7, 8.
Israel is a terrorist state!
1, 2, 3, 4,
Occupation no more!
5, 6, 7, 8.
Israel is a terrorist state!
1, 2, 3, 4,
Occupation no more!
5, 6, 7, 8.
Israel is a terrorist state!
1, 2, 3, 4,
Occupation no more!
5, 6, 7, 8.
Israel is a terrorist state!
1, 2, 3, 4,
Occupation no more!
5, 6, 7, 8.
Israel is a terrorist state!
End the siege on Gaza!
End the siege now!
End the siege on Gaza!
End the siege now!
End the siege on Gaza!
End the siege now!
End the siege on Gaza!
End the siege now!
End the siege on Gaza!
End the siege now!
End the siege on Gaza!
End the siege now!
End the siege on Gaza!
End the siege now!
End the siege on Gaza!
End the siege now!
End the siege on Gaza!
End the siege now!
End the siege on Gaza!
End the siege now!
End the siege on Gaza!
End the siege now!
End the siege on Gaza!
End the siege now!
End the siege on Gaza!
End the siege now!
End the siege on Gaza!
End the siege now!
End the siege on Gaza!
End the siege now!
What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now! What do we want?
Justice!
When do we want it?
Now!
What do we want?
Justice!
When do we want it?
Now!
What do we want?
Justice!
When do we want it?
Now!
What do we want?
Justice!
When do we want it?
Now!
What do we want?
Justice!
When do we want it?
Now!
What do we want?
Justice!
When do we want it?
Now!
What do we want?
Justice!
When do we want it?
Now!
What do we want?
Justice!
When do we want it?
Now!
And to demonstrate just how many of us there are standing here in solidarity and support of our Palestinian brothers and sisters, as opposed to the warmongers who defend the unjustifiable killing of innocent civilians and children in their hundreds and thousands. We stand here in our millions, in our billions. We are all Palestinians. In our millions, in our billions.
We are all Palestinians.
In our millions, in our billions.
We are all Palestinians.
In our millions, in our billions.
We are all Palestinians.
In our millions, in our billions.
We are all Palestinians.
In our millions, in our billions.
We are all Palestinians.
In our millions, in our billions.
We are all Palestinians.
In our millions, in our billions.
We are all Palestinians.
In our millions, in our billions.
We are all Palestinians.
In our millions, in our billions.
We are all Palestinians.
In our millions, in our billions.
We are all Palestinians.
Free, free!
Palestine!
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 Free,
and praying and Israeli snipers shooting him? What clash between children holding flags and shouting for freedom whilst being met with tear gas and drones? This is certainly no clash, but an inhumane massacre. Enough is enough. The UK government must speak out against these crimes. They cannot turn a blind eye to what is happening. All these peaceful Palestinian protesters wanted was to return to their homeland without bloodshed or bombs, but instead they were met with tear gas, snipers and fire. They were unarmed ordinary people shouting for freedom and peace. And it is the right of all people to protest for a better future without a violent response, without live ammunition, without tear gas, without rubber bullets and without fire. We tell them, either respect our existence or do not be surprised by our continuous resistance until the siege is lifted. End the siege on Gaza! Still resist! We still resist! We have not forgotten and we shall return. Our generation will be the one to dismantle this system of oppression. In our thousands and in our millions!
We are all Palestinians!
In our thousands, in our millions!
We are all Palestinians!
Long live Palestine!
Long live Gaza!
Long live Palestine!
Long live Gaza!
And long live our resistance! Together, let's continue to shout louder, to tell them the Downing Street silence against Israel's unlawful crimes will not be tolerated. Free, free!
Palestine!
Free, free!
Palestine!
Free, free!
Palestine!
My name is Ron Cohen, as you said. I'm a member of Judas. I'm an Israeli Jew and I'm an anti-Zionist. You've probably heard of us now in the news saying lots of things about Israel. They're probably all true. One of the things we didn't do, I'm going to read you the prayer that we did read. It's a prayer that we wrote and we wanted to read out because of the terrible things we've seen happening in Gaza. It's been breaking our hearts. This is a prayer for justice for Gaza and for the refugees to return. I'll give the English translation after. אל מלא רחמים, מתיר אסורים, מבקיע ימים ופורץ גדרות. תקע בשופר גדול לחירותינו, עשה נס לקבץ גליותינו. וקבצנו יחד מהרה מארבע כנפות הארץ בארצנו. השיבם אדוני ארצה וישיבו, ברוכים הם בצאתם ובשובם. דרור יקרא ויגאל כמים משפט על ירושלים, וצדקה כנחל איתן לעזה. In English. God full of mercy, who releases prisoners, divides seas and breaches borders, blow a horn for our liberation, and carry out miracles to collect our diasporas, and collect us together soon from the four corners of the earth to our land. Return them to the land, Lord, and they will return. They are blessed in their leaving and their returning. Freedom calls. Let judgment run like water upon Jerusalem, and justice like a mighty stream to Gaza. ברוח, בדם, נבדיק על פלסטין!
בדם, נבדיק פלסטין!
Who are standing up for peace and justice for the Palestinians. And I want to say a few words alongside those who've condemned the reporting and the coverage of these atrocities. I want to condemn those who use words like skirmishes and conflicts, as if in some way there is an equivalence between the military might of Israel and those peaceful demonstrators in Gaza. There is no equivalence. There can be no equivalence when a nuclear-armed state with a massive arsenal, maybe some people say it's twice the size of the UK arsenal, when that kind of military force is up against a people that are imprisoned in a tiny strip of land. And there can be no equivalence when we know that in the past the Israeli state has used white phosphorus on the people of the Gaza Strip. White phosphorus use is illegal under international law against civilian populations. And we know that not only have they tried and used this kind of weaponry on the civilians in Gaza, that in the recent events they have tested their new drone technology to use drones to drop canisters of tear gas on civilian population. And I think we have to say we've had enough of using the people of Gaza, the innocent civilians of Gaza, as guinea pigs for testing their new weapons technology. And I think we have to ask ourselves, how long before this technology is being sold in the arms fairs across the world for profit? We have to put a stop to this, and we have to make this absolutely clear to our government. We have to end the support for this criminal regime, and we have to end support for the arms trade with Israel. And I think also we have to say there can be no silence about what is happening in the Gaza Strip. There can be no silence about the fact that people, innocent civilians, are shot in the back as they walk away from these protests. And we have to say, whoever is using this terminology of equivalence, that it has to stop. There can be no equivalence. We have to show solidarity, active solidarity with the Palestinians and the people of Gaza. And I would just end with this. History will judge very harshly those who do not stand up in solidarity with the people of Palestine, the Palestinians, the people of the Gaza Strip, and people will judge harshly those who remain silent at this time of terrible crimes. Thank you.
One of them just down the road there, and it's our duty to keep pressure on the government of Britain and other Western governments that protect Israel from the crimes it commits against the Palestinian people. And you know, it was the pressure on all them governments that helped bring down the end of apartheid South Africa. And it will be that same kind of pressure on Western governments that brings down the government in Israel, the apartheid government. And let's bring a government to the Middle East where Christians, Jews, Muslims, Arabs can all live together in peace. That has to be the aim of what we look for today. You know,
hands up anyone who is a member of the House of Lords or the House of Commons here today. A deathly silence. I am ashamed of them. It is absolutely disgraceful that in a country that stands up for justice and human rights, that our representatives are not standing up for justice and human rights for Palestinians. It is outrageous. It is quite outrageous. I'm not mentioning any by name, but every party is guilty. I am old enough to have been on the committee that introduced a clause about arms sales, which was that we would not sell arms sales to countries who would use them for internal repression or external aggression. Israel does both, and we are still selling arms to Israel. It has to stop. Please, I beg of you, and so many young people here today. I'm an old woman and it does me good to see so many young people. You must put pressure on the parliamentarians. We have got to stop this outrage. We've got to stop what's happening to Palestine. We have got to make sure that it is not another 70 years before those people are free. They're in the majority now in that area. There are more Palestinians than there are Israelis. So let's go for it. Free, free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine!
Brick by brick, wall by wall!
Free apartheid has to fall!
Brick by brick, wall by wall!
Free apartheid has to fall!
Brick by brick, wall by wall!
Free apartheid has to fall! Occupation is a crime!
From Iraq to Palestine!
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 Occupation is a crime!
From Iraq Palestine.
Occupation is a crime.
From Iraq to 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 Palestine.
Occupation is a crime.
Free, free.
Palestine.
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 In our millions, in our billions.
We are all Palestinians.
In our millions, in our billions.
We are all Palestinians.
In our millions, in our billions.
We are all Palestinians.
In our millions, in our billions.
We are all Palestinians.
In our millions, in our billions.
We are all Palestinians.
In our millions, in our billions.
We are all Palestinians.
In our millions, in our billions.
We are all Palestinians.
In our millions, in our billions.
We are all Palestinians.
In our millions, in our billions.
We are all Palestinians.
Long live Palestine!
Long live Palestine.
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 Free, free!
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 Palestine.
Make some noise for yourselves!
Palestine.
Free, free!
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 Palestine.
Theresa May!
Shame on you.
Theresa May!
Shame on you.
Boris Johnson!
Shame on you.
Theresa May!
Shame on you.
Boris Johnson!
Shame on you.
Theresa May!
Shame on you.
Boris Johnson!
Shame on you.
Theresa May!
Shame on you.
Boris Johnson!
Shame on you.
Theresa May!
Shame on you.
Boris Johnson!
Shame on you.
Theresa May!
Shame on you.
Boris Johnson!
Shame on you.
Theresa May!
Shame on you.
And one last time, as loud as you possibly can. Free, free!
Palestine.
Make some noise.
Hi everyone. The killing and wounding of yet more unarmed Palestinian protesters yesterday by the Israeli forces in Gaza is an outrage. The majority of people in the Gaza Strip are stateless refugees, subject to a decade-long blockade and denial of basic human and political rights. More than 2/3 are reliant on humanitarian assistance with limited access to the most basic amenities such as water and electricity. They have a right to protest against their appalling conditions and the continuing blockade and the occupation of the Palestinian land, and in support of their right to return to their homes and the right to self-determination. Firing live ammunition into crowds of unarmed civilians is illegal and inhumane and cannot be tolerated. We stand in solidarity with the Israelis who have taken to the streets this last week to protest their government's actions. The silence from international powers with the responsibility of bringing a just settlement to the Israel-Palestine conflict must end. The UK government must support the UN Secretary General call for an independent international inquiry into the killings of protesters in Gaza and to review the sale of arms that could be used in the violation of international law. The events in Gaza and the threat of renewed conflict underlines the urgent necessity to achieve negotiations to achieve a viable two-state settlement that delivers peace, justice and security to both Palestinians and Israelis.
Because the media is ignoring what is happening in Gaza. Not only that, we see the Israeli army actually attacking the press. Journalists who've attended the demonstrations have been killed. One journalist has been shot, but it was clearly marked on his chest and on his helmet that he was a member of the press. 6 other journalists have been wounded in the course of this action. They know the targets they're aiming at. They can see them. They fire at people when they're running away from the border. That's the inhumanity that we're seeing from the Israeli army. So let the British press actually pay attention to that. Report it, and report the words of Jeremy Corbyn, and report the actions of this demonstration, and future demonstrations which we'll continue to hold in solidarity with the Palestinian people. To read to you now the words of Caroline Lucas of the Green Party. Caroline has been a consistent supporter of the rights of the Palestinian people, so I'm proud, although I'm not a member of the Green Party, nevertheless I'm proud to read her words. The Green Party utterly condemns the use of violence against peaceful and unarmed Palestinian protesters. For too long, the Israeli government has acted with impunity. It's time they were held to account for their action, and we join with those calling for a full and independent investigation. If the Israeli authorities have nothing to hide, they will cooperate. It is not acceptable to shoot and kill people who are exercising their fundamental human rights. The international community is watching, and we stand today in solidarity with our Palestinian brothers and sisters. We stand with them as they seek peace and as they seek justice. And let's also not forget that the Easter weekend protests along the border were about the right to return. So we also add our voices to those from around the globe calling on the Israeli government to recognise that Palestinian refugees do have a right of return to their homeland. Peace and justice go hand in hand, and we want the UK government to commit to both in the Middle East and to back up their words and actions. Caroline Lucas of the Green Party. Just one final word. These demonstrations that have taken place in Gaza intend to be continued until Nakba, until May the 15th. I hope we continue our campaigning, of course beyond that date, but let's give particular solidarity to the people of Gaza demonstrating their fight for their right to return. Solidarity with Palestine.
And I'd just like to say how good it is that Caroline Lucas and Jeremy Corbyn have sent us statements, but how much more we need the politicians to attend these demonstrations and to take the side of the Palestinians against what the Israeli government is doing to them. Because, as Caroline's statement says, this is about the right to return. You drive people off their land, you make them refugees, you put up a border, and then you shoot them when they try to cross that border. It is absolutely barbaric, and we should not let it continue. It is against international law, it is against every moral law, and we cannot have journalists being shot in the back. We cannot have young children killed in Gaza, as is going on at the moment. It could not happen without the support of our government here, of Theresa May and her rotten, stinking Tory government, which sells arms to Saudi Arabia, sells arms to Israel, and will do anything to protect the present setup in the Middle East. And it couldn't happen without the support of Donald Trump, who is moving the US Embassy to Jerusalem in May in an absolute disgraceful move, which again is in breach of international agreement. So we say this isn't just about the Palestinians, it's also about what our government does and what the special relationship with America does. And we need an anti-war government led by Jeremy Corbyn, which can actually begin to change these policies. And we need it quickly. I'd like to make one other point. Our protests are not just necessary, they are legitimate, they are in solidarity with the people of Palestine, and we are not going to stop. We are accused sometimes, people say that those who protest about Israel are being anti-Semitic. I say this is completely untrue. I have marched on all the Palestine demonstrations. I've been part of them.
They distinguish very, very clearly, because apart from anything else, many Jews take part in the demonstrations over Palestine, and very, very welcome they are as well. But people on those demonstrations can distinguish between supporting Jews and supporting the right of Jews to have their own religion, to live and work in the way that they want. They can distinguish between that and the right at the same time to criticise the state of Israel. And I would like to say today, we have this next 6 weeks of protest leading up to the 70th anniversary of the Nakba, when the Palestinians were displaced, and I believe it is very, very important. We assert our right to protest. We're against all racism, we're against anti-Semitism, but we're also against what Netanyahu and Israel are doing to the Palestinians. Solidarity with the Palestinians, keep campaigning.
The Jewish group Judas is now famous. Like them, I am incensed by betrayal. Betrayal of the fundamental values of humanity, betrayal of fundamental Jewish values, a betrayal visited on the Palestinian people when they were exiled in 1948, by 50 years of military occupation, with its demolition of thousands of homes, with its incarceration and torture of children, with its illegal and violent settlers, and its onslaughts on Gaza, and a decade-long medieval siege which denies drinkable water, basic medical facilities, which drives people into deep poverty, which drives an infant mortality rate in Gaza which is 8 times that of Israel, and which denies the right to protest. When a family picnic becomes a revolutionary act, and where civilians are shot in the back, and there is another betrayal, that by the Board of Deputies of British Jews and the Jewish Leadership Council. Shame! Why do they not decry these violations but champion them? They purport to demonstrate against anti-Semitism. They hid the flag of Israel, but their purpose is transparent, to bring down Corbyn, because he is on the side of justice for the Palestinians. Like a medieval crowd at an execution, they are baying for political lynchings. Obscenely, a black Jewish woman who dared to question their integrity. Let everyone know, we stand alongside Jackie Walker. Not to do so would be to abandon our principles, and I will never do that. There is again a spectre haunting Europe. The rise of neo-fascist parties across 10 countries. Listen up, 10 countries. But the Board of Deputies and the Jewish Leaders Council have closed their eyes, just as the board did in 1936 when the British Union of Fascists sought to march down Cable Street. Just as Netanyahu sees nothing when his ministers meet with the Austrian Freedom Party. If they were serious about anti-Semitism, they would devote their energy to this danger in Europe. But their cause is not to fight real anti-Semitism. Their cause is not universal justice and human rights. Their cause is to be a protective shield around Israel's heinous crimes. To the Jewish community, I say this. You are following false prophets. Take the beam from your eye. Summon the courage to denounce the betrayal of human values, to denounce the siege of Gaza. Neither Israel, nor the Board of Deputies, nor the Jewish Leadership Council, nor Labour Friends of Israel, nor Conservative Friends of Israel, nor the Jewish Labour Movement speak in our name. Because a people who oppress another can never themselves be free. Because we stand for freedom and justice for the Palestinian people. We stand for freedom and justice for Gaza.
All the way from Ireland, the only MP to address this stage today, from the Member of Parliament for Mid-Ulster, and representing the Sinn Féin party that has been consistent in its advocacy for the
On behalf of Sinn Féin, I would like to congratulate you for your protest today and to stand hand in hand with the Palestinian people in their fight for freedom, in their fight for their land, and to reassure you of our support as Sinn Féin into it. I am an MP. I don't take my seat in this establishment, but I call on Theresa May on behalf of her government to actually intervene to ensure that the rights of the Palestinian people are respected, the rights of the people to claim the ground that was taken from them, the right of the British government to interfere and to intervene on the behalf of the Palestinian people. That is the right, but unfortunately they've joined with other international international governments to ensure that Israel is protected, that what is happening on that protest is protected, that it is concealed. We have the same situation in Ireland, and it reminds me of Bloody Sunday in Derry when 14 people were shot with live rounds by the British Army. And that was the exact same arguments that are coming from us, that we should engage in peaceful protest and not be engaged in armed struggle. That was peaceful protest. What happened last weekend, what's happening today, is peaceful protest, looking for the rights of the Palestinian people. And we call on the British government to stop selling arms to Israel, to stop selling arms to other conflict situations around the world, to ensure that the rights of the people can be endured. The international community has stood by, time and time again, the justice that should be met from the governments and ensured from governments is not being carried through. The inquiries that should be happening from the UN are not happening because the US simply stopped everything on investigation. We need to ensure that the pressure is on the international community to deliver for the protection of the Palestinian people. The British government have a responsibility because they were part of the setting up of Israel, and they need to protect the Palestinian people to ensure that their rights are protected, that their rights on their land is protected. And that's why we support the campaign now to reclaim that land, to bring back that land, to ensure that the Palestinian people have the right to own that land, to work that land, and to live in that land. And we call for the stopping of the building of the extension of Israel out into the Palestinian land. So today we stand with you in solidarity. We stand with you in solidarity from the Irish people around the world, but from Sinn Féin as a political party. We have always stood by the Palestinian people. We will always stand by those who are fighting for freedom and for justice and for peace. And the British government and other governments will always say we should engage in peaceful protest. Well, that is peaceful protest, but yet people were mowed down by live rounds from the Israeli government, and there has been no investigation, no condemnation from either within the Israeli government or within the international community. So we call on that to happen now and to ensure that the Palestinian rights are protected. And we stand in solidarity with you today, the Palestinian people. Go on,
Give a round of applause for Sandra Yacoub.
Thank you. It's with great sadness that I came down from Birmingham today. Another round of atrocities. People in Gaza, once again in the news because of what's happening to them and not because of the progress that needs to happen. But I came for 3 reasons, and I have 3 key messages. 1, to our own government, which deals with the Israeli state, not on a fair basis, not on a human rights ethical basis, but on a basis of providing the arms, £119 million worth, which just in 3 years alone have resulted in over 2,600 Palestinians being killed. 2,600. That's not just a figure. That's real human beings. Brothers, sisters, daughters, husbands, whole families impacted. And we're not talking about history, we're talking about what's happening now. And we see children not being protected or left out of this. We see thousands and thousands of children being abducted, put in solitary confinement, tortured, but we do not hear our government protest. We do not hear our government issue reprimands. We have the red carpet laid out for the Israeli leadership, just as we have the red carpet laid out for the Saudi leadership. And it is shame on our government. And it is as a British citizen, I come here today to say not in my name. So we want consistency and ethics from our government. And I have a message for the people of Gaza. You're not alone. All these people are here who are not Palestinian, who are not Arab, who are not Muslim, and they're not here because of any hatred or prejudice. They are here because of their love of humanity, equality and justice. And they see your pain. They hear your cries. They share your tears. And we know that part of the brutality of the Israeli regime is not just the physical violence, it's the psychological violence of isolation, of making the victim the oppressor, and of making the oppressor the victim. But every single person who's come here today is witness to the crimes that are being committed and are standing in solidarity, in humanity, with you, side by side. You are not forgotten. And part of the Israeli approach is to silence dissent. Not just in the Middle East, not just in the occupied territories, not just in Gaza, but right here. And that's why I came today on the train from Birmingham on my Saturday in the Easter holidays for the kids. Because we will not be silenced or intimidated in showing solidarity for the suffering of others, whether they're here or abroad. Because this is about our human rights as well now. There is a reason why so few MPs have come. Not because it's not clear what the right thing to do is. Because they too have been cowed and intimidated and silenced in what is so-called the mother of democracy. So actually we're here for our human rights and democracy, to keep that space open. And my last message in terms to us, that we're not alone, we're here together. We will keep coming out time after time. We will not be intimidated or silenced. But at the same time, we will be consistent in our ethics, in our justice, in our humanity. And we will not stand by 1 inch, 1/4, 1 atom of anti-Semitism. We will not allow our criticism of Israel to be used as a cover to justify any vilification of Jewish people as a whole or as individuals. I'm sick and tired as a Muslim to be expected to be an explainer of anything that happens anywhere in the world carried out by Muslims. It is not the responsibility and duty of every Jewish individual to somehow explain, justify, condemn or support Israel. Let's separate out these things. Let's stay united in the fight against racism, against xenophobia, whatever form it takes. Because we are seeing the waves of right-wing populism across Europe and getting a foothold here. In Birmingham just a weekend ago, 4,000 people came in. 4,000 people came in to intimidate Muslims. We had Punish a Muslim Day just this week. I know what racism, covert and overt, feels like. And I will not stand by any Jewish brother or sister, whatever their views on Israel, being vilified just because they happen to be Jewish. Let's keep this about the politics. Let's keep this about the oppression. We have our moral stance and we will come out time and time again to stand up for truth, justice and peace. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for being here today. I'm very proud to be speaking on behalf of the NUT section of the National Education Union and to bring you the greetings of our General Secretary Kevin Courtney and our President Kiri Tunks, who can't be here today. It's right that we're protesting here opposite Downing Street, because the silence from this government in response to what's happened in the last few days has been deafening. Theresa May, Boris Johnson, you should be joining the worldwide condemnation of the acts of the Israeli government and to be telling them that you cannot win peace down the barrel of a gun. You cannot achieve a just peace by shooting unarmed civilians. Every year, the NUT sends 2 delegations of our members to Palestine, and these people come back changed by what they witness. They come back changed by the brutal treatment they see of the Palestinians at the hands of the Israeli government and the Israeli army. They come back changed and determined to do something about it. As an education union, we take a particular interest in what happens to children, and the treatment of Palestinian children at the hands of the Israeli army is shocking. I want to share some statistics with you. 800 Palestinian children up to the age of 16 are detained, arrested and prosecuted every year by the Israeli government. They're transferred to prisons inside Israel in breach of the Geneva Convention. Their hands are tied and they're transferred to prisons on the floor of military vehicles. We've read testimonies of verbal and physical assault on these young people. They're not given access to lawyers or an independent adult, and many of them are kept in solitary confinement for up to 29 days.
Well, what is the bloody BBC if not a propaganda outfit? The coverage on Newsnight, the coverage on the Daily News by the BBC has been appalling. And we pay for it. We should have some rights over it, and I've been arguing now for years that license holders of the BBC should start organising and protesting. We don't pay our license fee if all we have is a propaganda unit of the British Foreign Office. Now I want to talk briefly about anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism that we are told has swept the Labour Party. Anti-Semitism, we are told by columnists in The Guardian, that is a big problem for the left. Let me be blunt. The attack on Corbyn is disgusting. Its aim is very clear. He is the first leader of the Labour Party who has very progressive positions on foreign policy. And they don't like him, and now they are fearful that Labour might be elected. And you might have someone sitting inside there who breaks with the path, who says, I'm an anti-war Prime Minister. And my advice to Jeremy Corbyn, an old friend and comrade, is this. You have been at your best when you have fought back against the slanderers and the liars. That's what people respect you for. When there were terror attacks during the election campaign, and Corbyn courageously said, these are appalling attacks, but don't forget what causes them. What causes them is British foreign policy. What causes them is the wars. And within 48 hours, the opinion polls were showing that between 60 and 70% of the population supported him. So what was going to be a big campaign against Corbyn to smash him during the election backfired. And I predict that this absurd, vile, grotesque campaign charging him of being soft on anti-Semitism will collapse in the same way.
I just want to start by saying it's so amazing to see so many of you here. Like I can see right at the back, everyone there. So we'll start with some chanting. From the river to the sea,
Palestine will be free.
From the river to the sea,
Palestine will be free.
Free, free.
Palestine.
Free, free.
Palestine.
Free, free.
Palestine.
As we stand out here today, exercising our right to demonstrate, we are safe in the knowledge that we most probably won't be attacked for doing so. For the Palestinians on the other side, it can not be more than a opposite picture. On the 30th of March 2018, peaceful Palestinian protesters were fired at with live fire and bullets by Israeli snipers. 17 were killed, 500 injured. Some shot as they fled for safety, some even as they prayed. As of yesterday, the second round of protests saw 10 more killed, 2 of which were children. The land day killings show that Palestinians have never had the right to protest, nor the right to contest the state of Israel and its atrocities. A state that has robbed millions of Palestinians of their homes, their livelihoods, and of course so many lives. A state whose very foundations are built upon the discriminatory and racist treatment of an exploited people. It is about time we acknowledge this state for what it really and truly is. A settler colonialist state who have spared no expense at exterminating a people from the land they have stolen. So, as we approach the 70th anniversary of the catastrophe, it is clear why these land day protests that shall continue every Friday for the next 6 weeks are so significant. It sends a message to Israel that we shall indeed return and this right will not be taken away from us.
Years of injustice, and injustice that has led to Gaza being turned into a virtual prison, blockaded for a decade, denied the most basic of human rights, and including the right to a dignified life. This is a prison where thousands have been killed and tens of thousands have been injured, where a whole people have been deliberately impoverished, where people are traumatized as the Israeli state launches countless military assaults to collectively punish a whole people. The Palestinian people are being systematically denied the most basic of human rights, including the right to return, which is a fundamental right enshrined in the UN resolutions. We have political prisoners, including children, being imprisoned by illegal military courts for demanding basic human rights. Friends, we were told last Friday and yesterday that Palestinians, civilians, were killed in clashes. These were not clashes. This was the deliberate killing of unarmed civilians, young children shot in the back. This was a violation of the Geneva Convention. And what is important, friends, is we have to remember that the Palestinian dead are not just numbers. They are people, fathers, mothers, brothers, sisters and children who once again are burying their loved ones. We have to say their names. We have to say their lives matter, that Palestinian lives matter, that black lives matter.
Of the Palestinians killed, massacred by the IDF on the 30th of March. When they have finished reading out the last name, we are going to ask you to stand in silence for 2 minutes out of respect for those killed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. One of the functions of violence which is invisibilized, like the Israeli violence, is that the victims are also invisibilized. So we thought it was really important that today we mark the names of the people who were killed last week on the Great March of Return and this last Friday that passed on the Great March of Return. And we hope after that we'd be able to have a 2-minute silence. Thank you very much. Majdi Ramadan Shabbat.
علاء يحيى الزاملي.
حسين محمد ماضي.
أسامة خميس قديح.
صدقي أبو عطية عطوي.
محمد سعيد صالح.
محلول.
عمر وحيد نصر الله سمور.
محمد كمال النجار.
أمين منصور أبو معمر.
هلا. محمد نعيم أبو عمر.
أحمد إبراهيم عودة.
جهاد زهير أبو جاموس.
محمود سعدي رحمي.
إبراهيم أبو شعر.
End the siege on Gaza! End the siege now! End the siege on Gaza!
End the siege now!
End the siege on Gaza!
End the siege now!
End the siege on Gaza!
End the siege now!
End the siege on Gaza!
End the siege now!
End the siege on Gaza!
End the siege now!
End the siege on Gaza!
End the siege now!
1, 2, 3, 4!
Occupation no more!
6, 7, 8! 1, 2, 3, 4!
Occupation no more!
5, 6, 7, 8!
Israel is a terrorist state!
1, 2, 3, 4!
Occupation no more!
5, 6, 7, 8!
Israel is a terrorist state!
1, 2, 3, 4!
Occupation no more!
5, 6, 7, 8!
Israel is a terrorist state!
Long live Palestine! Long live Gaza! Long live Palestine!
Long live Gaza!
Long live Palestine!
Long live Gaza!
Long live Palestine!
Long live Gaza!
Long live Palestine!
Long live Gaza!
Long live Palestine!
Long live Gaza!
And because my voice really is going now, lastly, as loud as you possibly can, put your placards, your flags, your fists in the sky, with the spirit from the bottom of your heart, calling out to the people of Gaza in solidarity. Free, free!
Palestine!
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 Thank you, everyone. Make some noise.